welcome. Thanks for joining us for this session about what happens when local communities lead data and statistics. My name is Diana Harper. I'm an independent consultant who works primarily in evaluations. And I'm joined here as a second moderator with my friend and colleague, Jenna White.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna White. I am also an independent consultant, researcher, and evaluator, and we're so happy that you've decided to join us here today for what we believe is a very important conversation.
Great. So one of the reasons why we proposed to do this session and why we were really excited to be accepted is that, a lot of talking about data at the United Nations is about thinking about pulling data from lots of different countries and lots of different contexts and adding it all up so that you can compare and contrast and make decisions at a global level. And obviously that is incredibly useful and it's incredibly important. But I do think that we as researchers could be more attentive to local communities. To be more attentive to the local individuals, the local organizations, where this data comes from. And I'm really happy that recently we've had some really good experiences with programs that are taking a bottom-up approach to collecting data, to analyzing data, and to using that data.
So in the spirit of this approach, we thought it would be best that you hear directly from our colleagues rather than hearing about these experiences from us. So we're going to play a few short videos, but while we do that, what we ask is that you keep in mind a data equity lens and maybe pause the videos and ask yourself the following questions. One, whose perspectives have been elevated as a result of this approach? So who goes from perhaps merely being included in a data collection effort to really leading the effort in terms of what data is collected and how? And secondly, what is information that's collected in this way that may not have been collected had we been leading it with more traditional approaches?
Great, thanks. So first, we're going to hear from a few of our field colleagues from Tanzania. I got to know this group as a result of doing an evaluation of what was called the Data Collaborative for Local Impact. It's a program that was implemented by the Millennium Challenge Corporation with funding from PEPFAR and is working in a few different countries. And what we'll hear from Jumani and Omar is how this program worked and how it sought to strengthen the data ecosystem in Tanzania by empowering local actors, local communities with data skills, data analysis abilities, and really data decision-making power. So now we'll turn to them.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Bakari. I'm one of the co-founder of Tanzania Data Lab. Thank you very much for the organizers to invite Tanzania Data Lab to participate in these wonderful sessions regarding local ownership of data. This is very critical sessions, particularly in facilitating the achievement of supporting the community development and change that they really want. And from the DLAB perspective, this session is aligning very well with our community engagement pillar, which is one of the strong pillar in the hub of empowering and transforming and supporting the life or change of the community to where they want it to be. Tanzania Data Lab is a local organization founded by local Tanzanians who have had an opportunities to learn and collect different experiences through the implementations of Data Collaborative for Local Impact program, the program which was funded by Millennium Challenge in collaboration with PEPFAR here in Tanzania. through this learning, we really get to know that we always talk about data, but in actual sense, community were really far behind in understanding the need of using data to take their own action, but at the same time to inform the government and other leaders on what is really needed. And through the strategic implementation of these organizations or these projects, what we really did was a unique approach to facilitate from the beginning of listening the citizens themselves. And through that process, empowering them to prioritize their things and make sure that they own the local agenda that they have decided. It has helped us a lot to make sure that we are part and parcel of the communities, in the sense that they own their problems and they own the data that they have generated themselves. And through these processes, we really get to see that there was a critical need to make sure that communities are engaged in different paths of the data value chains in order to make sure they participate fully to influence the change that they want. Through Data Zetu program, which was our learning, as a program director before we founded the Tanzania Data Lab, it was really interesting to see that if communities are engaged with the innovative approach of making sure they collect data, not only because they were asked to, but it's because they believe that those data that will change the problem that they want to address. Through engaging different NGOs that are working in different priority areas of the community that they have selected, it has also facilitated the action of citizens to make sure that the result are seen and the follow-up is coming up. So this is one of the interesting parts that the community has given us an opportunity to learn. And through this learning and through the sustainable mechanism of continue providing services through Tanzania Data Lab, we have replicated it beyond the priority areas that the previous project was focusing on. Now we have an organization locally owned, locally generated, founded by Tanzania. It's moving towards beyond the whole countries, but also beyond the country that it was originally formed. So we really thanks again the organizers for inviting us to participate and share our experience on this. But remember, without engaging the citizens, local ownership and subnational enhancement of the data ecosystem, the change is not easy to be attained. So let's continue prioritizing on empowering the citizen, understand their rights, understand what they can do to make sure that data makes a difference to them. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jumanne Mtambalike. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sahara Ventures. One of our sister companies, Sahara Sparks, between 2016 to 2019, we were involved in a project called Data Zetu, which was supported by MCC and PEPFAR. We work with other partners such as ILEX, SBC4D, HOT, Data Lab, Tanzania Bora Initiative, and Code for Africa to implement this project. Our core responsibility in the project was to do something called community engagement through an approach called listening campaign. Listening campaign was an approach which is a hybrid approach involving both scientific research procedures as well as community engagement activity. We did the listening campaign intervention in 3 districts in Tanzania: Temeke Municipal Council, Mbeya District Council, and Kyela. The way we did it was through going to the communities and clustering the communities in different groups, including youth groups, women groups, community-based organization, and other community groups. and encourage people within the community to say their problems that they face on day-to-day basis, but also through what we call pain point prioritization process, where these problems or pain point identified on the community were ranked in terms of their matter of importance on which should be addressed first. So this was the process of the listening campaign. We had two types of campaign. We had what we call listening campaign 1. This was dealing with a bigger group. And we also had what we call listening campaign 2. Listening campaign 2 was more of a validation meeting involving leaders. And these leaders were responsible to validate what came from the community in terms of the pain point and what needs to be prioritized in terms of intervention. So that was how listening campaign was conducted. Among the lessons that came from the listening campaign, one of them was the community was very happy to be involved in the process of solving their own problem. They expressed their frustration in previous engagement where people come to collect data, but they're not doing anything with their data. But also, the community made us to understand and appreciate the importance of the granular data in terms of doing interventions, because some of the issues that were identified, they were completely grassroots level, and a national level intervention will not be able to address some of those issues. But also some of the tools which were developed within the project were able to be tested by the community, and hence this approach allowed user-centered approach toward approaching the problem, and it was well accepted and well adapted, and it's something we as Sahara Venture we're continuing to use in our intervention, and we have a lot of lessons from it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So we heard from the team in Tanzania quite a bit about these listening campaigns that were done under the DCLI program. And I just also wanted to reflect based on the evaluation we did of the program. One thing that was really interesting about these campaigns is what we heard from local leaders or local NGOs or other local community members who participated in them, was that they were actually an opportunity to build trust and build relationships between the local leaders and their community members. And that they had not always naturally had that opportunity where they could discuss issues and discuss issues about data and discuss what additional evidence they need to make decisions in a really open-ended way. And I guess I just thought it was sad that a donor was sort of, sparking that effort or facilitating it. But it was positive to see that it was happening. One other thing that we also found that was really interesting was that what came out of these listening campaigns, what had been shared back and documented as sort of the community priorities and the evidence behind them, was actually being used after the program was ended, almost like handover notes as different district leaders or different ward leaders either moved on to new assignments or were newly elected. It served as sort of a community memory for what their priorities were, and again, gave them a chance to advocate for what they were interested in and what was important to them in a non-adversarial format, in a very positive and productive way. And next, we're going to hear from Sylvestre from Rwanda. He is going to talk about a very interesting activity that he did in part of a bigger activity that was being done by DFID and USAID to test innovative approaches to systems diagnostics in the education sector. So what happened, just to set the stage a little bit, what happened in this activity was that the folks at headquarters thought this was a really interesting methodology, systems mapping, it was a really interesting tool. And then they went out and found some field offices that were in the right place in their sort of planning processes or their project processes to use this tool. And so as a result, we were kind of going back and forth between, what would be good for the methodology and again, what was appropriate for this specific context and for their specific needs. And what we ended up with was that, sort of the time period for the participants in this research effort, everyone would only be available for maybe like 2 hours, maximum 4 hours. They were going to be shorter workshops than maybe we would have proposed to use if we were integrating this into a longer activity, or if we were planning it sort of on a standalone activity. And I think that was obviously good because it's adapting the methodology to the local needs, it's being respectful of everybody's time. But the reason I wanted to share that is because, we kept hearing from different people involved in the project that they were really excited to see what sort of behavior change the participants would have as a result of going through these workshops and going through this systems mapping methodology, which Sylvestre will talk more about. And I kind of kept pushing back and saying, it's a pretty short workshop. We hope that they will enjoy it. We hope that they will, find it interesting, but we're not really expecting a lot of behavior change as a result. And we were really surprised to see both in the session as well as during 3 and 6 month follow-ups that these sessions had an effect on people's lives. People wanted to replicate the methodology either in their NGO or in their school or in their government. People were giving lots of examples of how they were thinking about issues differently, how they were thinking about issues more systemically. People also gave a lot of examples of how by sitting around the table with different stakeholders, parents, teachers, government officials, they again had started to build relationships, and they were thinking about how they could solve problems more collaboratively together. So I was astonished by that, just like I said, due to the short sort of intervention time and what happened as a result. So now we will turn to Sylvestre, and you'll hear more from him about this activity.
Hello, greetings from Kigali, Rwanda. I'm Sylvestre Musengimana, Senior Consultant and the Managing Director of Educational Consulting Success, ECOS. It's a research-based consulting firm based in Rwanda. I'm so happy to talk about the data collection that supports local ownership. I had the opportunity to facilitate one-day participatory workshop for local leaders on education issue diagnosis and the strategy formulation. The workshop was organized in September 2019. It was organized by Education Donor Agency in Rwanda in collaboration with an international consulting firm. I was a part of the facilitator. The workshop brought together various stakeholders, including educational officials, head teachers of school, teachers, parent representatives, and the other key stakeholders working in one of Eastern District, Eastern Province in Rwanda. And the workshop was organized in response to some of the findings showing that there was low learning outcomes in literacy for students in P1 and P3. And there was a statement like students dislike the school. And the participants agreed on the statement, and using a system mapping approach, they were asked to discuss the major factor and the sub-factors that are contributing to the fact that students dislike the school. And putting together various perspectives, point of view, at the end, we came up with 4 categories of factor. Factor from family level, individual factor, school environment, and the structural factor, including the education system itself and education policies. After 4 months from the time of the workshop, I had some feedback from the participants saying that there was behavior change in terms of appreciating issue related to education, awareness in terms of a factor that are affecting student attendance to the school, and also discovery of importance to work together with other stakeholders while identifying school or barrier or school issues. And also some of them reported that they took the system mapping approach into the daily work in terms of identifying the problem they are facing and finding solution in a consultative way. In terms of success factor, when we talk about data collection that support local ownership, I can say that there is a need to really involve the local leaders throughout the process of data collection, and also identifying the real issue the local leaders are facing so that they can understand and they own the process. There is also a need to see tools translated into the languages so that they not only understand, but they are also able to use the tool themselves with facilitation of an expert, but also the tool that reflects the daily context. In brief, that's what I can share, and thanks for listening.
Now that you've watched these videos from our partners, we'd like to challenge you to think about how we can collectively reimagine what data collection looks like. COVID is actually providing us with a unique opportunity to pause and reflect on our traditional approaches to data collection. So thinking about projects that you've had or have coming up, how might you use some of these approaches to collect more meaningful data? And also, what does this mean for traditional approaches where we usually have external consultants parachuting in and out of local communities? So collectively, the question we're asking everyone at this event is to think about how we can change our mindsets and approaches for more meaningful data collection where we really put local actors not just in the process, but really in the lead.
Yeah. And, just kind of on a personal note and a personal reflection, a lot of the times we feel like because we've received a scope of work or terms of reference from the donor that they're really the only ones who could put local actors in the lead. And absolutely, I think we have to keep advocating for that, and we have to keep thinking about how to make that change at that top-down structural level. But really for people who are researchers, what can we do and what can we do to shift the power more locally? Just a short example that I'll share, and then we hope to hear as well examples from others, is earlier this year, I was doing an evaluation in Malawi for a really great organization called World Connect. They do small grants at the very local level, and they actually give those local communities and local leaders total freedom to figure out how to use that grant money to make sure that it can really address the needs that are at the local level and have ownership in implementing the program. And when I was asked to do this evaluation, the expectation was that I would come and parachute in and collect some data and give a judgment on what was working well in the program or not. But I knew I had great partners at World Connect, and I knew that they had a locally sort of oriented mindset. And when I suggested that we actually do this as a partnership with a local research institution, and instead of me, really being in the lead and doing everything, I could just provide technical assistance to that local research institute to do the evaluation. And when I go into the country, I would be doing training on methods, I would be doing help with design, but we would take every chance that we could to put that local research institution in the lead. And it was a good thing that we did, because we were implementing this activity in March when sort of the COVID pandemic hit. And what was great about it is that if we had just used a traditional sort of externally led evaluation approach, we would have had to just cancel the whole study and we wouldn't have been able to continue. But because we had invested in the local research institution, they were able to continue with the work. They were able to shift the data collection tools to virtual. And we actually ended up with a really interesting evaluation that has affected not only what the program in Malawi is doing, but what the organization as a whole is doing. So we all believe that it's important to invest in local approaches to data collection, local approaches to data analysis and use. But I really agree with you, Jenna, that it's never been more important than right now to do so.
Agreed. And if we were in person, we would love to have a back and forth conversation with all of you who are watching this video. So what we'd ask is that you provide examples from your own work that we can all learn from into the chat. And of course, if you have questions for us, please use the chat function as well. And our commitment is to carry on this conversation throughout the 3 days of this event. And after the event, you're more than welcome to reach out to Diana and myself. You can find our speaker information and how to find us on LinkedIn. And if it hasn't come across, we're very genuinely passionate about this issue of changing how we think about data collection, because data collection should be for those constituents whose lives are going to be impacted by decisions that are made from this data. We firmly believe that we need to rethink the dynamic where we have external quote unquote experts coming in and leading the process and leading the analysis. And we need the data collection and interpretation to truly be driven by local actors in order to achieve the changes that all of us who work in this sector are so desperately seeking to achieve. So thank you for listening to us. Thank you for your time. And we would really welcome the opportunity to hear from you. So let's keep this conversation going during the 3 days of this event and after as well. Thank you again.